did you know they were underage at the time?
I knew that there were teenagers in the chat, yeah.
Colleen Ballinger is back, and did she ever really leave? But she's decided that she wants a rebrand. However, see, the thing is, context matters. And if you're gonna put someone with years of allegations in front of a microphone, at least have the spine to ask any of the real questions. Because what even was this? Also, Colleen, I have some questions for you. Specifically, you have a daughter, right? Would you find it acceptable for me to ask her about her period? Would you find it acceptable if I spoke to your son while holding a tampon in my mouth? How about if I asked any one of your children what their favorite position was? And to Raven and Miranda, if you heard any of those questions or did just the bare minimum of research, any one of those three things should be, I don't know, utterly shocking to you.
I know that my intention and my actions have never been fueled with the desire to manipulate or groom anybody ever. That has never been something I have done or will ever do.
Before we go any further today, we need to make sure that we are very clear when we're talking about the definition of grooming, because this is something that is thrown around a lot in the conversation when it comes to Colleen Ballinger. It's a pattern, a process where an adult builds trust, pushes boundaries, and normalizes inappropriate behavior with a minor. So, Colleen, when you say, I didn't groom anyone, are you sure? Welcome to That's My Opinion, where we break down the biggest stories, uncover hidden truths, and explore why they matter. I'm Bacon Bears, and today we're talking about Colleen Ballinger and the apologies, ? And whatever the fuck this podcast was supposed to be, because yikes. Before we jump in, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any deep dives, the receipts, and the live stream breakdowns we do every single week. And if you want ad-free videos, early access, and behind-the-scenes content, you can also join channel memberships. And if you want to talk true crime with us between uploads, we have a Discord. It's a safe, private space where we discuss different cases, theories, and updates together. All the links are down below. As always, this video is for conversational purposes only. Do your own research and form your own opinions, because this one's mine. And let's get started. Before we even touch the apologies, the excuses, or the screenshots, we need to be very clear about who we're talking to, because Colleen Ballinger isn't just some random YouTuber who posted a couple of cringe videos in 2014. Colleen built an entire career around a character named Miranda Sings. Miranda is the overlined red lipstick, the badly parted hair, the off-key singing, the overblown confidence. The character in itself was the joke. Somebody who was completely convinced that she was a star while absolutely butchering every song and every social cue. And for a long time, the internet absolutely ate this up. And she wasn't just doing this on one little channel either. She turned Miranda into a full-blown brand, multiple YouTube channels, millions of subscribers, viral collabs with other creators, brand deals, live tours across the US and internationally, and even landed a Netflix scripted series built entirely around this character, who was supposed to be a teenager, and there was a lot of incest jokes between this teenage character and her gross uncle, because it's funny, I guess.
I don't get comedy.
On top of that, she built a second layer on her personal channels, vlogs, behind-the-scenes content, story times, day-in-the-life videos. Those weren't Miranda, that was Colleen as herself. So fans weren't just following a character, they were following her as a person. They knew her home, her relationships, her friendships, her family. They watched her get married, divorced, remarried, pregnant, give birth, raise her kids, and it's all on camera. She invited the audience into pretty much every aspect of her entire life. And the tone of all of this is bright and goofy and hyper, but most importantly, it's kid accessible. Now just keep that in your back pocket, okay? Just keep that one tucked away. The thumbnails were loud and colorful. The jokes were silly and exaggerated. The Miranda character herself acted like a giant child. There were tantrums, bad behavior, playground level insults, and the actual feel of her content, the way that it was packaged, the way that it was promoted, drew in kids and young teens in droves. Huge numbers. Her live shows would also follow that same formula. She performed as Miranda in full costume, did bits, and brought people from the audience up on stage. The venues were often filled with families, their kids, they're holding up handmade posters. The kids have homemade Miranda outfits and red lipstick. And for a lot of them, this wasn't just entertainment. Miranda was their idol. They made fan art, fan accounts, fan edits. They lined up for meet and greets. They spent real money and time on her. Colleen wasn't just a comedian for adults. She was a grown woman building a massive, emotionally invested following where children and teenagers were the core of her audience, both online and in real life. And that's why the behavior we're about to talk about is not just like messy creator drama. It's a serious discussion about what happens when an adult content creator blurs the line between performer, best friend, to the children who support her.
That's fine, but like they need their parents' approval because this is not a kid show.
When people talk about Colleen Ballinger, a lot of the conversation gets watered down into, well, she's just a comedian. Her content wasn't originally meant for kids. And that sounds neat on paper, but it doesn't actually line up with what actually happened. See, the reality is that children and teenagers made up an enormous portion of her audience for years. And because she let her fan base become so personally involved in her life, showing her home, her pregnancy journeys, her children, her relationships, younger fans didn't see her as a comedian with a character. They saw her as a trusted adult. And that's the context that we're dealing with here. She wasn't operating in a space where her audience was a bunch of adults who understood boundaries. And even adults have issues understanding boundaries. And imagine putting that understanding in a child's brain. She was operating in a space where the people who looked up to her were overwhelmingly minors, deeply attached, emotionally invested, and eager for validation, which is important. And that's the environment that makes everything that happened next so serious, because when your audience is young, the responsibility falls on you, the creator, to maintain appropriate boundaries. It's not on the children to figure out where that line is. Every conversation about Colleen Ballinger's pattern of behavior eventually comes back to one name, Adam McIntyre. And not because he was the only fan that she ever interacted with, far from it, but because Adam is the one who publicly laid out the timeline with receipts, messages, screenshots, and details that showed the internet what had been really going on behind the scenes. Adam started as what thousands of kids were at the time, a dedicated Miranda Sings fan. He watched the videos, he made fan edits, he tweeted about her, he supported the character the way many young fans did. He wasn't an insider, he was simply just a kid in the audience who liked her content. But then something happened that changed that dynamic completely. Colleen then noticed him. And when a creator who has millions of subscribers suddenly singles out a fan, especially a young one, the power shift is immediate. And Adam has always been open about this part. He was thrilled. Anybody would be. He looked up to her. He admired her. And when she began responding to him, mentioning him, or interacting with him, it felt like validation from someone he idolized. And that's exactly what it was. At the time, many of the interactions now being discussed took place when Adam was around 13 to 14 years old. He was a child, not a young man, not an underaged man. What a choice of words. Underaged man. That's like when people who are predators say, young woman.
Young lady.
No, they're children. They're children. Also, the thing that's wild about this is I have a moderator who's like, if it's not acceptable for John Doe, then it cannot be acceptable for Jane Doe. And the fact that she's just like getting off easy from all of this, and this is an easy get off, trust me, because we're going to go through some shit. And it would be much different if she was a man, but I digress. Back to the person that matters, Adam McIntyre. He was a child. And from there, the communication would escalate. More messages, more direct interactions, more moments where Colleen blurred the line between creator and friend, term I use loosely because a 30-year-old being a friend with a 13-year-old in my brain doesn't exist. You cannot be friends. Tell me, what is it that you have in common with a 13-year-old. I'll wait. One of the most important parts of Adam's story is the period when Colleen began treating him less like a fan and more like, unpaid labor. At around 13 or 14 years old, Adam wasn't just watching Miranda Sings. He was suddenly pulled into the behind-the-scenes machinery of her brand. He was a part of it. Colleen gave him access to official Miranda Sings social media accounts with millions of followers, including her Twitter, and encouraged him to help run things. He would draft posts, managed interactions, brainstormed video ideas, helped her develop jokes, moderated fan engagement, and even gave feedback on the direction of her character and where she should go online, which is hilarious because if you're not making a character for children, why ask a child about character development? And Adam has said many times that he was never compensated. At the time, he didn't question it. You know, he's a kid who idolized her and the validation alone felt like it was enough. But now, looking back and being a creator himself and understanding what it takes, he describes the experience as feeling used. And this is one of the moments where the power dynamic becomes impossible to ignore. An adult entertainer with a multi-million view platform, outsourcing creative labor and brand management to a child. During one of Colleen's live streams, she opens a package that included a bra and underwear that she claimed she hadn't ordered. The chat began joking about it, and in one moment she played along, at one point even offering to send the lingerie to a fan as a part of a bit, I guess. It's so funny, haha. What makes this moment significant is that she eventually did mail the bra and underwear set to Adam, who was a child. In his video in 2020, Adam physically showed the items as proof of what had happened. In this little tea time podcast, Colleen herself acknowledged the incident and admitted that sending the lingerie was inappropriate, calling it a moment where a part of her brain was missing. However, she completely downplays the entire situation. Now, here's what she said about it in 2025.
But I loved giving out stuff. And so I was doing a live stream like I did pretty often, and I was opening up a box of clothes that I had bought, and in it was this underwear bra set that I didn't order, and it was, we were all laughing about it. So everyone in the chat was laughing about it, me and my friend, and he actually put it on over his clothes. I was like, look at this, and we were laughing about it. And there are people in the comments saying, oh, send that to me, send that one to me. And we were like, we're not gonna do that, that's crazy. But then there's one fan in particular who kept asking us to send it. I was like, obviously you can tell in the live, like I'm like hesitant about it, because there is a little bit of brains in there somewhere that was like, maybe not, because I hesitated. But then I was like, and I didn't send it. I didn't. But then it was just became an inside joke with the fandom, and everyone was like telling me to send it, and he kept asking for it. It was like months of this until finally I did, and it was very public and as a joke. And it was like a part of my brain was missing an action of like, hey, this is not a good idea. This looks bad. It wasn't a pair of my something that I sent to a young fan in an inappropriate way, but it was inappropriate. Like, why would I, what part of me thought like, everyone will know this is a silly joke in the fandom? Like, that was, I wish I'd never done that. That was so inappropriate. And if he was made to feel uncomfortable because of that, like, I feel terrible, and I'm so sorry, because that was not my intention with that. I thought it was like a silly inside joke with the whole fandom. It was all very public, and I thought it was a silly thing, and it was so stupid.
Now, if you're meeting Colleen for the first time because the Tea Time podcast, Raven Simone and Miranda decided to platform her, instead of the people who say that they were actually harmed by her in this whole situation, probably it just sounds like a tiny faux pas. It's just a lip faux pas. Tiny faux pas. A silly little misunderstanding, except it wasn't. Okay? And what they didn't do, which for someone who has been in entertainment as long as Raven Simone is shocking. Shocking. These two have a platform, the resources, and the reach. Google is fucking free to actually fact check or at least pull clips that show what happened. But they didn't. They just took Colleen's version and ran with it. But don't worry, I'll handle that part for you. Which is funny because I have a one-man team. Me. One man. Just...
The fuck?
Ew! That outfit! Screaming homeschooled Christian University realness.
Adam, Cookie Ballinger said, hi, you are such a fashion icon, and tweeted the ugliest picture of me. This is honestly the worst outfit. He's so rude. What made you order these ugly clothes?
Adam!
Those clothes are nasty. He's so rude. Oh my God, he's so sassy. Your Twitter account is making me laugh so much. Oh my god, that makes me laugh. I want to send him something. Do you want the bra, Adam?
Adam, do you want the bra and panties? Tweet right now.
Oh my god. Yeah, Adam, let me know what you want. He's in Ireland. Hi, Adam. I love you. Okay. I'm sending him something. Okay, maybe he'll want the panties. Although then his parents will be like, "You're not allowed to watch who is sending you panties."
But this
He'd be like,
YouTuber's-
"Mom, don't worry. I watched a boy wear them online first."
Now, do those two things look the same? You can tell me about your thoughts in the comments down below. I am so interested in hearing them. Adam describes how overwhelming it was at his age to have Colleen, an adult creator that he admired, vent to him about personal issues, including her marriage. He also talks about the emotional roller coaster that came with being pulled very, very close, encouraged, validated, trusted, and then all of a sudden being pushed away, ignored, or blocked, and being completely discarded and thrown in the bin, as he likes to call it, because he's from Ireland, the bin. But he was just completely discarded like trash when it didn't benefit her anymore. Colleen would then go on to make her rebuttal video. You know what? If you're not going to address it properly, just maybe don't at all. Because any apology video from you, Colleen, sucks.
Sucks.
In her 2020 apology video, she frames the situations as a teensy little misunderstanding, a case of a teenager getting swept up in a fandom dynamic that he didn't fully grasp, and her just not realizing the impact of her decisions as an adult creator. And she also then took the time to edit and splice up the live stream to make it look a way that it wasn't, to vilify Adam McIntyre, the child in the situation. The fallout on Adam's side was brutal. Brutal. He openly talked about the wave of harassment that hit him immediately, death threats and DMs, people digging into his identity, doxing, and entire sections of the fandom turning against him overnight. He was a teenager being swarmed by thousands of angry adults and older fans who were defending a creator that they idolized, which is a choice I will never understand. Let me take a side note, okay? I have yet to be an internet drama. I don't aspire to do it, okay? I don't want it. But let me tell you, if I ever get into a beef with another creator, I will never, ever support hatred to that other person. And if you think that spreading hatred in support of me is something that's acceptable, it's not. It's not. If you spread hatred using my name, you do not support me. But they were all defending a creator that they idolized. And because Colleen did not say anything, to calm the situation or clarify the narrative, she just allowed her fandom to fill in the blanks themselves. However, the fact that Adam was brave enough to speak up in 2020, especially under the amount of pressure, hate, and intimidation he was facing, became the first crack in the glass. And as we now know, that specific crack is exactly what would widen over time until the whole thing just finally shattered.
I used to do this weekly question and answer thing with my audience. That particular group chat was full of a bunch of different fans of all ages.
Did you know they were underage at the time?
I knew that there were teenagers in the chat, yeah.
It's time to talk about weenies. What the fuck? Because this is where things actually start to make sense. See, according to the screenshots shared online, the Weenies chat, Colleen's Weenies, I believe, was created in early 2017. The fans in the group were mostly between the ages of 12 and 17, with a few adults mixed in. Gross. And this wasn't just some giant fan space. This was a private chat. Colleen was added directly, and she interacted with these teenagers regularly. The people in this group weren't random viewers. They were considered the top tier, if you will, of the fan base. These were the fans who had met her multiple times at shows, who she recognized, who she spoke to often. And because of that relationship, the screenshots show that they sometimes received special access and perks. People also claim that Colleen used this chat to vent during the height of her divorce. Do you not have friends? She would also talk about online gossip, hate comments, and rumors spreading on forums. People would describe her dropping into the chat with things like, everyone hates me, or asking for the tea, which usually meant whatever divorce drama was circulating at the time. Sources say that she often shifted the conversation back to her personal life, even when the teens in the chat were talking about something else entirely.
Because what about me?
It's also claimed that she repeatedly told this small group of fans that she loved them and that they were her best friends, and even talked about wanting to have a sleepover party with all of them. Colleen had a private group chat with teenagers and reinforced, I love you, I want to have a sleepover, a parasocial relationship by treating them like close friends. And all that lines up with the behavior she later acknowledges, sort of, in her own words, in the Tea Time podcast. Just not portraying it as it actually happened. Why would we do that? Now, Colleen wants you to think that she may have overshared, right? But she was just trying to be funny. But the truth of the matter is the screenshots that came out with this group chat with 12-year-olds are vile. They're vile. Let's go through some of them, shall we? She asks all the kids if Adam needs questions for his Q&A, asks them if he's a virgin. She asks the kids, what's your favorite position? Somebody says, my ass looks so good. I believe this might have been Adam. And she asks for pictures. She wants to know about their first thoughts when they got their periods, because why not? There were videos of her talking to them while holding a tampon in her mouth. Yeah, you know what? Actually, that's something I'm really proud to say is I am a 40-year-old woman and I've never put a tampon inside of my mouth.
There was one pose where our two people on both legs are spread open, holding each other's legs. And I genuinely never thought of it as a sexual or inappropriate thing.
Let's start with the yoga bit. Right? Because out of everything in Colleen's live show history, this moment is the one that she tries the hardest to soften and minimize. And she just tries to explain it away as comedy. Like, it was just such a silly fart joke. Let me paint the actual picture for you. Okay? She brings up a minor on stage, a girl. Okay? Wearing a short skirt. Colleen still chooses to do a partner spread leg yoga pose. The exact kind of move that, I don't know, should have been cut from her set the moment kids started attending her shows. Or, bare minimum, hear me out, you'd expect she'd have someone on her team scanning the audience for volunteers who were dressed appropriately for a physical comedy bit. Or, even more bare minimum, because the bar for these people is in hell, could have pulled up somebody her age. I know, it's shocking.
Shocking.
You picked a child in a skirt, and then years later, you sit on this podcast acting shocked that anyone had an issue with it because it was a silly little fart joke.
Predator, even though a lot of you think so, because 5 years ago I made a fart joke.
And here's what makes this even more frustrating, okay? The entire Tea Time podcast, Raven and Miranda never once address the victim by name. They don't show the clip. They don't describe what actually happened. They don't contextualize the fact that the minor involved was wearing a short skirt, something that drastically changes how the situation reads. And if you're willing to platform Colleen on your podcast, you should also be willing to hold her accountable. At the very least, make her watch the clip of herself back or actually describe what the issue was. If you are going to give Colleen a platform, you should also be able to say the name of her victims to her face. This particular victim has a name. It's Becky. When you don't name them, when you don't tell the whole story in context, it allows the audience to not get personally invested. Oh, it's just somebody on the internet. No, this victim has a name. She's a real person. And if you're going to platform the person who did this, you should at least be capable of saying the fucking name of the person who was hurt by her. Colleen has had no problem saying JoJo Siwa's name. She's had no problem giving the names of adult collaborators. But all of a sudden, when it comes to someone who was hurt by her own show, we're allergic to proper nouns. Why? One of the things that I find very interesting about this podcast, especially since we're talking about live show routines and comedy bits, I use that term the lightest of lightlies, okay, is that Miranda Sings, Colleen Ballinger, had a routine where she would tell audience members, including children, that they looked like porn. Yeah, and that's exactly what she said to Becky before pulling her on stage.
This is porn. This is porn. This is porn. This is porn.
Another time where context would have been something.
Pulling Cheetos. That makes it sound more egregious. Like he's physically eating out of her pants. He wasn't. He was taking one.
Oh, he was taking see? That's how things get twisted.
Right. Yeah.
So could you explain it, please?
The cheese ball routine is another example of how Colleen's live shows routinely crossed boundaries long before the internet ever called her out. In this bit, Miranda shoves a giant bag of cheese balls down the front of her pants and invites audience volunteers on stage to take a snack. She frames it as goofy slapstick, but in practice, it meant putting volunteers, sometimes very young volunteers, inches away from an adult performer's pelvic area for a laugh. And yes, there is a clip of a 9-year-old boy participating. And I want you to go and tell me in the comments if this was an adult male performer and this was a 9-year-old girl, if it would still be funny. But the other thing is it's not just about that clip. It's about the entire setup that surrounds it. In the routine, she talks about Miranda and the volunteer being on a date in the middle of the woods, alone, where nobody can hear them. Nobody can hear them scream. And that dialogue is a part of the performance. Again, it drastically changes the tone of the bit. Another thing I want you to pay attention to right before this little boy stays on the stage, okay, he's the one that stays there. Two older men are already up there. One looks like he could be 20. The other one looks like he's 60 something. They're literally right there. She chose the child. Why? Would your audience have seen that visual differently? And let's just face it, okay? If your jokes can't land with adults, but it can land at the expense of a child being sexualized, maybe you're not funny. Write better jokes.
I put more clothes on over my clothes on stage. When I transitioned from me into Miranda, I, in front of everyone, put on more clothes. So I'm wearing lots of layers of clothing, and then there's the cheese balls in a bag. And
this excuse might be my favorite, because in the comments, let me know, okay? Picture this. How many shirts, how many layers would I have to wear for it suddenly to become appropriate for me to invite a 9-year-old child to reach toward my chest area for a comedy bit? So funny. What is the magic number of layers that makes that scenario acceptable? 2, 5, 10?
The limit does not exist. The limit does not exist.
The limit doesn't fucking exist, okay? Because it's never acceptable. When people talk about the Colleen Ballinger controversy, most of them think of the old Miranda clips, the yoga bit, the cheese ball bit, the group chats, right? But what a lot of people forget or never knew is that one of the most serious breaches of trust didn't happen a decade ago. It didn't happen before she became a mom, because she loves playing that mom card. Once I became a mom, a lot of this behavior came after you became a mom. It happened during a time when Colleen had already faced public backlash, had already claimed that she learned from her past. And yet right in the middle of all of that, she decides she's going to launch the Oversharing podcast with fellow YouTuber Trisha Paytas, a woman she called her friend, a woman who let Colleen into her home, around her children. However, as fast as it started, it collapsed because people began coming forward saying that Colleen had shared private, adult-only images of Trisha. She would have viewing parties of Trisha's adult content and laugh at her. Oh, and she wasn't just sharing them with anyone. She was sharing it with, say it with me, folks, minors. Trisha Paytas had an account of some sort that was adult-only content. Colleen paid and subscribed and then would send that to not only other people to make fun of Trisha, but she would also send it to Adam when he claimed to be just 15. So I would love to know, Tea Time, why wouldn't you cover the fact that one of the accusations that people had proof for was the fact that Colleen Ballinger sent porn to a minor? I'll wait. Trisha's reaction was really the cherry on top of the dog pile that was happening to Colleen. She said that sharing someone's private content without consent is a line that you don't ever cross, especially with a minor, ever. Raven and Miranda, this is the woman that you chose to platform? This is the person you sat across from, giving her space to rewrite her own narrative without doing even the most basic due diligence. You let her guide the conversation. You let her frame the story. You asked her fucking questions like, do you forgive yourself? As if what matters most is how she feels. What? This podcast, in all seriousness, was wildly irresponsible. When you invite someone into your studio during an active public conversation about harm, boundaries, and accountability, you have an obligation to understand the full context. And in this case, you just didn't. You offered comfort where you should have offered clarity. You offered softness where you should have offered scrutiny. And the end result is a platform that protected the powerful instead of the people who were hurt. A tale as old as fucking time. When the conversation around Colleen grew wider, it didn't just stop at the content or her own behavior. It expanded to people inside of her circle. And one of the most unsettling threads came from allegations involving her older brother, Trent Ballinger. Trent appeared all throughout Colleen's vlogs and was treated by fans as an extension of the Ballinger brand. That context matters, because fans who felt close to Colleen often also felt close to her family, making him a star in their eyes. Here we go with the power imbalance again. And that's where Oliver comes in, a former young fan who released screenshots of alleged conversations with Trent from when Oliver says that they were just around 13 years old. And Trent would have been 30. 30. In these messages, Trent asks Oliver's age directly, so he knows how old Oliver is. He also allegedly acknowledges being told not to interact with... Who needs that disclaimer? He was being told not to interact with minors while still continuing the conversation anyway. He tells Oliver not to tell anyone that they're speaking, which would insinuate directly that he understands that this is unacceptable behavior. Trent had nicknamed Oliver Peapod. Says at one point how he just wanted a special video from Oliver. No adult should be having private conversations like that with young fans, young children, young teens. No adult. No adult. When these allegations surfaced, some Colleen defenders tried to just wave them away with a very bizarre excuse, saying that Trent wouldn't type like that because he's deaf. What? Deaf creator and advocate Ricky Pointer would address this correctly, saying the argument was inaccurate, insulting, and completely dismissive of how capable deaf people are of communicating fluently via text. In other words, the defense isn't just weak, it's also rooted in harmful stereotypes. Yay for you guys! And while Trent's situation is separate from Colleen's, it still matters to the broader conversation. It shows how the environment around her, the access fans had, and the lack of boundaries, the casual way that adults just mixed in with kids online, wasn't just limited to Colleen herself. I really just don't understand why this is a hard concept. Now, believe it or not, Colleen has never publicly addressed these allegations. And I honestly don't know why I'm surprised anymore, honestly. But what really stands out to me, and I mean really stands out to me here, is that Trent has never publicly apologized for this alleged behavior, nor has he ever publicly denied it. Because if someone was online circulating claims that painted you in a predatory light, wouldn't that be the first thing that you would want to correct? Wouldn't you want to clear your name? We've talked about weenies. Let's talk about clits. Oh yeah, you heard me. The inappropriate behavior wasn't limited to Colleen or her family. The entire inner circle had its own patterns of crossing lines. Enter Corey DeSoto, Colleen's right-hand man, her on-camera best friend, her tour companion, the person standing next to her in vlogs, live shows, and even crisis moments. And because of that role, Corey became woven into the fabric of her fandom in a way that made him feel accessible and familiar to what? Say it with me, friends, minors. How do you guys find each other? Like, also, why do we want this? Why do we want this? Over the years, fans have shared screenshots from a group chat known as Corey's Clit. I hate this video. I hate this video. This group chat allegedly included mostly teens. Surprise! And yet the humor, the tone, and language inside it was skewed very adult. And beyond the humor itself, there were messages circulating where Corey responded aggressively toward members who questioned him or stepped outside the group's expectations. There's also voice chats that he sent to the group about how he loves them so much and how they're just so amazing and they're all best friends and blah, 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 blah. Then when allegations resurfaced in 2023, something else happened. Corey began just scrubbing, cleaning, got that fabuloso girl, was out there, old tweets, gone, old videos, deleted or quietly privated, old interactions of fans, what? Wiped from the interwebs. It was an ecosystem where kids were routinely treated like peers. And it's fucking weird. It's weird. When the allegations finally reached a boiling point in 2023, the world waited for Colleen to address them. You know, a normal influencer would come back with a statement, maybe a Notes app apology on Instagram, wear a gray hoodie. I don't know. But Colleen, she would choose none of these things. No. She sat down, she picked up a ukulele, and then she delivered a 10-minute ditty that'll go down as one of the most infamous apologies the internet has ever fucking seen. The entire point of the song was to frame the allegations not as serious concerns, but as gossip. And she repeatedly says that she never engaged in any predatory behavior. She suggests the situation is fueled by people making things up for clout. And she claims that her lawyers told her that she can't talk about the allegations. So instead, she decided to sing about them. She didn't sing about the screenshots from the group chats. She didn't vibrato about sending Adam lingerie. She didn't about sending private adult content to a teenager. And the public reaction was immediate and brutal and well-deserved. Well-deserved. People, real-life humans, watched a grown adult, a mother, facing multiple serious allegations, pick up a fucking ukulele and mock the people who said that they were hurt by her. It was fucking historic, honestly. Colleen loves to talk about how much she regrets the ukulele apology. She'll tell you that she should have listened, she should have paused, she should have been more thoughtful, and so on and so forth. Yeah, any one of those things would have been better than whatever the fuck you did. But not only is the toxic gossip train video still online, okay, it's still public. She never uploaded it to the main channel, the Miranda Sings channel, the channel where most of the younger audience followed her. No, she uploaded it to the Colleen Ballinger channel, the channel with significantly fewer subscribers. It's still publicly mocking the people who came forward. Leaving that video online says, yeah, I regret it. Not enough to take it down. And keeping it up to this day is still laughing at the victimization of these minors. So now we get to Colleen's new apology. Well, not an apology anymore because they changed the title on the video to Colleen Says Everything instead of her full apology. I don't know. They changed the title. How convenient. Which brings us to whatever the fuck this abomination was. This time she shows up somber, very controlled, very serious, not very demure. Not very cutesy. You know, she comes in with the phrases that you expect to hear. I was embarrassed. I hurt people. I've learned. And yes, I will give credit where credit is due. This is absolutely more traditionally apologetic than the ukulele because that bar is set so low, it's in Satan's anus. There's no performance. She actually stays still and talks. But here's where the whole thing collapses for me. She never says Adam's name. she never acknowledges Trisha Paytas. She never addresses the group chats with real clarity. And it was this weird way of making things that are very serious digestible. These are not things that we need to make digestible. They are serious, and people need to understand the gravity of what was happening here. And the timing, that part, it makes this whole thing just feel like damage control. This apology didn't come before the backlash. It didn't come during the backlash. It didn't even come immediately after the backlash. It came after the podcast ended, the sponsors were gone, the tour dates evaporated, and the public moved on without her. And I'm sure the money stopped flowing. I mean, and she's in this place where she's buried herself so deep that it's going to be so hard to get out from under this one. So this apology, sure, sounds better. It looks better, but it doesn't really address anything when you have the full context, does it? I kept asking myself, why Raven-Symoné, someone who grew up in the entertainment industry, someone who spent years around adults who have since been exposed for extremely serious and criminal behavior, why would you choose to platform Colleen Ballinger and then soften the entire conversation around her? And in my opinion, both Miranda and Raven in this podcast acted as apologists. And that disconnect is wild to me. Because if there's anyone who would understand the seriousness of these kinds of allegations, the weight of them, the danger of brushing them off, the lifelong impact that they can have on real people, it should have been someone who grew up watching predators operate in the same industry that she was raised in. And honestly, it's embarrassing. You should be ashamed of yourself. It sends a message, whether you meant to or not, that Colleen's discomfort mattered more than the people who were harmed. And that's where this interview completely lost me. So here we are after everything, after the screenshots, interviews, the live streams, the apologies, and this is what we're left with. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about any single specific moment. It's about a pattern that spans years. And most importantly, a blatant refusal to take accountability until every other option has been exhausted. And before anyone jumps in with the classic, you're just trying to cancel her, let me stop you, okay? This isn't about destroying someone's life. I don't care about that. This isn't about chasing a scandal. This is about acknowledging that real people, real young people, were harmed, minimized, dismissed, and mocked, and threatened for years. And for somebody who says that she cares about their fans, she sure as fuck didn't care about their safety, did she? Accountability is not about cancellation. Accountability is taking responsibility, naming the people you hurt, repairing the damage, and making sure that it never happens again. So I'm going to leave you with this. The questions every viewer should be asking. Was her new apology sufficient? I don't know. What does real accountability look like from someone with this kind of influence? Honestly, in my opinion, I'd love to see her take all bets off the table and sit down with Adam McIntyre. Let him ask the questions. Let him ask the questions backed with proof. And maybe then, when she faces things head on, face to face, maybe then, for me, it would be enough. I don't know. Doubtful. If you made it this far, thank you for being here because, girl, this was a doozy, okay? Make sure that you should subscribe. Check the memberships and join me over on the Discord where we talk about cases in depth and the people who actually care about the facts, context, and accountability. I'm Bacon Bears, and that's my opinion. Bye.